Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're tackling a book I'm really excited about. It's called The 12-Week Year by
Yes.
Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington.
Really interesting approach to productivity.
It is, and we're going to see if we can't, you know, tease out some really actionable advice
Absolute.
for all of you. So, are you ready to potentially achieve 4 times more than you thought possible this year?
Let's do it.
All right, so this book really challenges how we typically think about setting goals, right?
Yeah, it kind of turns it on its head.
Yeah. The authors start by sort of dissecting the problem with this idea of annual thinking, setting these like huge goals.
Yeah, that whole like New Year's resolution thing.
Exactly. And then you have like this whole year stretching out in front of you, and it creates this false sense that you have a ton of time.
And then, of course, what happens?
Procrastination City.
Total procrastination. We all do it.
So the book points out, and this is interesting, they use this analogy of those like end of year sales pushes that businesses, because they're effective.
Yeah, because suddenly there's urgency, right?
Exactly. And the 12-week year proposes that we should be using that same kind of energy, but strategically throughout the year.
Instead of one big push at the end, it's like a series of smaller sprints.
Yeah. So instead of one massive year-long marathon, we're breaking it down into these shorter, more intense sprints, each with a clear finish line in sight.
Yeah, like athletes do with periodization.
Exactly.
They focus intensely on one skill or area for a shorter period, and that helps optimize their performance.
I love that analogy. But it's not just about, chopping up the year into these chunks, right?
No, it's about the mindset, too.
Okay, so how do we tap into that mindset? Like, how do we stay motivated during those 12-week periods?
Well, the book really emphasizes the importance of having a strong personal vision, like something that truly excites you.
That deeper why behind your ambitions.
Exactly. And it has to be something that really drives you forward,
Yeah.
even when you face obstacles.
So it's not just about like career goals or whatever. It's bigger than that.
Yeah. It's about your whole life, right? Like your
Wow.
relationships, health, personal growth.
Because at the end of the day, your job should enhance the life you want.
Right. Totally. Your work should support your life, not the other way around.
So by connecting our everyday actions to this like bigger, more meaningful vision, we're more likely to persevere.
Exactly.
I like that. And then the authors, they actually suggest ditching the traditional yearly plan altogether,
They think it's too broad and difficult to manage.
which makes sense.
A 12-week plan is much more targeted and actionable.
Yeah, it's like if you were packing for a weekend trip versus packing for like a year abroad,
Exactly.
you can be way more specific and deliberate,
And with the shorter time frame, you have more flexibility too.
so you can adjust and refine things as you go.
Exactly.
It's like this continuous improvement process happening throughout the year.
Precisely. Now, to break down those 12-week goals even further,
Yeah, because they could still feel pretty daunting.
we move to the weekly plan.
Okay, so how does
Uh,
that work?
The weekly plan is a super important tool. It helps you break down those bigger goals into smaller steps and prioritize your tasks for the week ahead.
So it's like creating a clear roadmap for what needs to get done each week.
Exactly. And the book recommends setting aside time at the beginning of each week to review your progress from the previous week
Okay.
and strategically plan for the next one.
I can see how that would really help build momentum. Speaking of tracking progress, tell me about this weekly scorecard idea.
Ah, yes, the weekly scorecard. This is all about being honest with yourself about whether you're actually taking action.
Because sometimes we can be super busy, but not actually making progress on the things that really matter.
Exactly. So the scorecard helps you track your lead indicators, which are the actions you're taking, and your lag indicators, which are the results you're seeing.
That's really insightful.
It helps you pinpoint any gaps in your performance.
And then you can adjust your strategy.
Exactly.
So it's like a constant feedback loop throughout those 12 weeks.
Yes, and remember, consistent execution is more about the steps you take than the results you achieve.
It's those small daily actions that eventually add up to big wins.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about intentionality in the 12-week year.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, intentionality is about making conscious choices about how you spend your time and energy.
Okay.
The book encourages us to be more selective about what we say yes to.
Saying yes to the things that really align with our vision and no to the distractions.
Exactly. We become the CEOs of our own time.
I like that.
Okay.
What about time blocking? Is that something they talk about in the book?
Yes, time blocking is a great way to support intentionality. They recommend setting up specific time blocks,
Okay.
like strategic blocks for focused work, buffer blocks for admin tasks, and breakout blocks for recharging to prevent burnout.
So all of these elements work together to create this system for sustained high-level performance.
Precisely.
Okay, let's move on to accountability. How does the 12-week year approach that idea?
Well, they have a really interesting perspective on accountability. It's not about external pressure or someone else holding you accountable.
So it's not about having a boss breathing down your neck.
No, not at all. The book reframes accountability as personal ownership.
So it's about taking responsibility for your choices and your outcomes.
Exactly, regardless of the circumstances.
That's powerful.
It is. It's about owning your successes and your setbacks.
Instead of making excuses, we're looking for solutions
Precisely.
and learning from every experience.
Exactly. Now, the book also makes a big distinction between being interested in a goal and being committed to it.
Oh, I'm curious about this one.
They actually use this funny analogy with a chicken and a pig.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the chicken contributes an egg to breakfast.
Okay.
The pig provides the bacon.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
The chicken is interested. The pig is committed.
So commitment means no excuses, no backing down when things get tough.
Exactly. It's about having that unwavering determination to see your goals through.
This is definitely a recipe for some serious personal growth.
Absolutely. And the book reminds us that greatness doesn't happen overnight.
It's about those small daily choices we make.
Exactly. Those choices to take action and to pursue excellence.
It's like the saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. The book points out that champions aren't made when they finally achieve that big win.
It's about all the moments leading up to it.
Right. It's about the dedication, the discipline, the willingness to overcome challenges.
I love that perspective. It's about embracing the journey and not just chasing the outcome.
Exactly. Now, all of these principles lead to what the book calls the 12-week year execution system.
Yeah, sounds intense.
It's a framework that consists of 5 key disciplines: vision planning, process control measurement, and time use.
So this is like the toolkit for making those 12-week sprints really effective.
Precisely. The book emphasizes that these disciplines all work together like a closed-loop system to create consistent execution and ultimately extraordinary results.
We've covered a lot here. So where would someone even begin with this whole 12-week year concept?
Well, the book stresses the importance of those first 4 weeks.
Those are critical.
They're all about building a solid foundation for success.
So it's like putting in the effort to get a flywheel spinning.
Exactly. Once you get through those first 4 weeks, the book offers strategies for staying motivated during the middle weeks and finishing strong in the final stretch.
Okay, this is starting to feel very practical.
Excellent. And remember, the whole system is designed to be flexible.
So you can adapt it to your own unique goals and circumstances.
Exactly.
That's reassuring because life is rarely predictable.
Right, and that's where the 12-week year can really help you stay focused on what matters most.
And earlier, we briefly touched on these weekly accountability meetings, or WAMs.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about those?
Sure. WAMs are a really important part of the 12-week year system. It's basically about getting together with a small group of people,
Okay.
ideally like 2 to 4
Or
people.
a mastermind group or something.
Yeah, kind of. But the purpose isn't to hold each other accountable in a punitive way.
So it's not about calling people out or anything like that?
No, not at all. It's more about creating that environment of support and shared learning.
So everyone can benefit from each other's experiences and insights.
Exactly. During these meetings, which are usually held weekly,
Okay.
everyone shares their progress, any challenges they're facing, and their plans for the coming week.
So it's a structured way to stay on track and get feedback.
Precisely. And the book points out that people who participate in these kinds of peer support groups have a much higher success rate.
That makes sense. Having that support system and that shared commitment can really make a difference.
Absolutely. Especially when you hit those inevitable moments of doubt.
Yeah, those times when you're like, is this really working?
Exactly. Having that group to lean on can be so valuable.
I'm starting to see how this 12-week year framework can really help people achieve those goals that might have felt overwhelming before.
Yeah, it breaks things down into manageable chunks and provides the support and accountability to keep moving forward.
But there's always that voice in the back of your head that's like, is this really right for me?
Right. And it's important to remember that the 12-week year isn't a one-size-fits-all solution.
So it's more like a customizable framework.
Exactly. The book gives you a ton of tools and strategies to choose from.
Okay,
So you can create a system that works best for you.
that's good to know. So let's say someone is feeling inspired and they're ready to give this 12-week year a try.
Great.
What are some practical first steps they can take?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, those first 4 weeks are super important.
It's about establishing those good habits right from the start.
Exactly. The authors recommend focusing on consistently executing that weekly routine we talk about,
Okay.
reviewing the previous week, planning for the next one, and participating in those weekly accountability meetings.
So laying the groundwork for consistent execution.
Absolutely. Those early weeks are also about building momentum and experiencing some early wins.
To keep you motivated.
Exactly. Like a snowball effect.
The more progress you see, the more motivated you become.
Precisely. Now, as you move through those first 4 weeks and into the middle weeks of the 12-week year,
Okay.
the book advises staying focused on your vision and your long-term goals.
Reminding yourself of that why.
Exactly. And they also offer some strategies for dealing with those dips in motivation that can happen.
Because let's face it, those happen to everyone.
They do. And
Yeah.
then as you approach the final phase of your 12-week year,
Okay.
the book suggests shifting your focus to finishing strong and celebrating your accomplishments.
It's about recognizing how far you've come.
Exactly. And it's a time to reflect on what you've learned and set yourself up for even greater success in your next 12-week year.
I love how it's not just about achieving those specific goals.
It's about adopting that mindset of continuous improvement.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in the book. That greatness isn't a destination. It's a series of choices we make every single day.
So true. It's about pursuing excellence in everything you do.
Not just in like your work life, but in all areas of your life.
Exactly. The 12-week year framework provides a way to make those choices more intentional.
And more aligned with your values and aspirations.
Precisely. Okay, so we've talked about the main ideas of the 12-week year.
From ditching annual thinking to embracing accountability and mastering our time.
Right. What are some common pitfalls people might encounter when trying to implement this system?
And are there any tips for overcoming those?
Well, the book acknowledges that switching to this new way of thinking and working can be challenging.
Because change is hard, even when it's good change.
Exactly. One common pitfall is the tendency to fall back into old habits.
Like procrastination or feeling overwhelmed by big goals.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that consistency is key for success with the 12-week year.
So you got to stick with those weekly routines.
Absolutely. Even when you don't feel like it.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to push through.
Exactly. And the authors offer some practical tips for staying motivated,
Okay.
like visualizing your vision, reminding yourself of your why, and celebrating small wins along the way.
Yeah, those little celebrations can really help.
They can. Another challenge the book highlights is the fear of failure.
Because when you're stepping outside your comfort zone and setting big goals, it can feel scary.
It can. And the 12-week year encourages you to reframe failure as a learning opportunity.
So it's not about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning from them.
Exactly. And using those lessons to improve.
I love that. It's about having that growth mindset.
Precisely. And this ties into the importance of embracing accountability as personal ownership.
Because ultimately, we're in control of our own lives.
Exactly. When we take full responsibility for our choices and actions,
We empower ourselves.
we do. We move from feeling powerless to feeling capable.
That's a powerful shift.
Yeah.
So were there any other tips for getting the most out of this 12-week year system?
Well, one thing the book stresses is the importance of keeping things simple.
So don't overcomplicate it.
Exactly. Focus on those few high-impact actions that will really move the needle.
The 80-20 rule.
Precisely. Another tip is to pay attention to your language.
Okay.
How does language come into play?
Well, the book highlights the power of using positive and affirming language when you're talking about your goals and your progress.
So focus on what you want to achieve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this also relates to the importance of celebrating your wins.
Both big and small.
Absolutely. Those celebrations reinforce your commitment and boost your motivation.
They remind you that the journey itself is worth celebrating.
Exactly. All right, so we've explored the main concepts and strategies of the 12-week year.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But one question I still have is, how does this system deal with unexpected challenges or setbacks?
Because life doesn't always go according to plan.
That's a great question. And the book acknowledges that unaccepted obstacles are part of the process.
Because sometimes things just happen.
Exactly. And that's where the flexibility of the 12-week year framework really comes in. So you can adjust your plans without losing sight of your vision.
Exactly. The shorter planning cycles allow you to adapt more easily and respond to those unexpected events.
So you don't feel completely derailed.
Right. You can incorporate those challenges into your ongoing growth and learning.
I like that. It's about embracing that growth mindset and knowing that the path to success is rarely linear.
Precisely. The 12-week year gives you the tools and the mindset to navigate those bumps in the road with resilience and grace.
This has been super insightful. I feel like we've really dug into the key elements of the 12-week year
We have, and I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about.
as they embark on their own 12-week year journeys.
I hope so. Remember, everyone, you have the power to create amazing results.
Okay, so let's wrap things up with that final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Right.
What's one area of your life that could benefit from applying the 12-week year system right now?
That's a great question to consider as we end this deep dive.
It's a call to action. Before we let our listeners go, I think we should do a quick recap of those 10 key takeaways from the 12-week year.
Yeah, a quick summary can be really helpful.
You've been on a deep dive into the 12-week year, and here are 10 key takeaways. Keep these in mind, and you'll be well on your way to accomplishing more than you ever thought possible. All right, so number 1, annual goals. They often lead to procrastination because we think we have all the time in the world.
Yeah, we get lulled into this false sense of security.
Exactly. Okay. Number 2, break down your year into those 12-week periods.
Like those athletes using periodization.
Exactly. It's about creating those intense, focused cycles.
Short bursts of energy.
Number 3, develop a strong personal vision.
Yeah, something that really lights you up.
That deeper why that drives you forward.
Exactly.
Number 4, short-term plans. They're just more effective.
They allow for greater focus.
And you can be more specific about your actions.
You got it.
Number 5, plan your week in advance.
So important. Break those goals down into smaller steps.
Prioritize those high-value activities.
Absolutely.
Number 6, track your progress with that weekly scorecard
Measure those actions and results.
so you can see where you're excelling and where you need to adjust.
Exactly. Identify those areas for improvement.
Number 7, be intentional with your time.
Yes, 100%.
Say yes to the things that truly matter.
And no to the distractions.
Number 8, embrace accountability.
As personal ownership.
It's about taking responsibility for your choices and your outcomes.
The empowering stuff.
It is. Number 9, move from interest to commitment.
Remember the chicken and the pig?
No excuses, just get it done.
Exactly.
And finally, number 10, greatness.
It's not a destination.
It's a series of small daily choices.
To take action and strive for excellence.
There you have it, 10 powerful takeaways from the 12-week year. I hope this deep dive has given you the insights and the motivation to make this your most productive and fulfilling year yet.
I think it has.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving for those amazing goals.